Today on The Morning Show, from policing the streets of Toronto to playing a slave married in secret. Actor Lyric bent on going from Rookie Blue to the Book of Negroes. Big Brother emergency visit, why first responders had to enter the house. And back in the co-host chair, Degrassi and 90210 star Shenae Grimes-Beech. Welcome to The Morning Show. Canada's conversation starts now.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcoming back to the co-host chair, Jill Pollock from HGTV and Shenae Grimes-Beech.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, Shenae, did it take a while for you to get used to your new name?
It's so weird. It's
Shenae
so
Grimes
weird. Like, I've had the same name forever,
Right?
and it's actually Shenae-Beech legally now, which is the weirdest part. So the new signature and all that stuff, it was weird. But now I forget the Grimes.
And as a father who just married off his daughter, and she is Robert's brat, at least I think so, but legally it's brat.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great that you kept your name. I mean, for your case, it's because, of course, you're an actor, so.
Yeah, well, that was the thing publicly. I was like, I've earned that name,
Yeah.
man. Like, I feel sad letting that go, and I didn't want people to get confused. So that'll last a little while.
We know you. We know you, and we love you.
Let's talk about two ladies who people aren't loving this morning.
man,
It was a
you're not
nightmare start to a vacation for a group of Cuba-bound Sunwing passengers. Listen to this. Overnight, 2 women were arrested for disrupting a flight, forcing it to return to Toronto. Officials say the pair drank alcohol. It was their duty-free that they opened on board. They then went into the bathroom, lit a cigarette that set off the smoke alarm, got into a fight, and then made statements that were concerning to passengers. Now, if you were on that flight, what would you like to see happen to these two?
Book him, Danny.
Oh my
Book 'em.
gosh, sounds like a 90s talk show. There's a bathroom in there.
And smoking.
Drinking and smoking and fighting. I mean, you know.
I know.
Although it would have been fun to party with the two on the beach in Cuba, don't you think?
I'm just saying, those YouTube hits, if anyone got a video, I mean, it's kind of well worth the watch, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I mean,
Imagine.
were they like lobotomized? You cannot smoke in an airplane since forever. So what were they expecting? I mean,
they-
I realized they were wasted.
Are they the other Kardashian sisters we don't know about?
Well, you know, but the
Rock
thing
people
is,
twins.
you remember that fellow who stumbled into the Trudeau's home? He
Yeah.
was drunk
Yeah.
and he went to the police
No
station.
charges.
No charges.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if these guys going to say, "Well, I was drunk, sorry," and then get off with no
point.
charge.
I went into the wrong bathroom.
Good point.
Exactly. I was
Touche.
drunk and I was smoking and then I disrupted the flight. Throw him in, I don't know, throw the book at him. This is awful. These people were getting ready for a lovely vacation in Cuba. And then the plane had to be diverted back to Toronto.
And had to be escorted because apparently when it flies over U.S. airspace, they were worried because it might have been a diversion for something else that was going on. So how much is that going to cost the
I was
airline?
going to say, what is that, what is the price tag on that little amusement, that little drunken bar story?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's like highly irresponsible.
And don't they have air marshals up there who are supposed to make sure when this goes wrong?
Yeah, I mean, haven't
You know what? They need
Did you see
Liam
Bridesmaids?
Neeson.
Yeah, Bridesmaids, right?
They need Liam Neeson on that flight.
That's what I was saying,
Liam
non-stop.
Neeson.
Non-stop. He was on the plane and none
Yes,
of this would
everybody
happen.
needs
What was
Liam
the
Neeson.
actor in Snakes on a plane? I think it would be more
Samuel
appropriate.
Jackson.
Yeah, Samuel Jackson would have been
Yeah.
better.
Somebody
to handle
would.
that
I mean,
one.
So
corral these
Absolutely.
women. What the heck?
Really?
I mean, the
crazy.
altitude, word to the wise. It's like one glass of wine and you're
Right
like,
there.
whoa.
Right there.
There you go.
There's the defense. When you get before a judge, Your Honor, it was at 37,000 feet.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah, no,
I didn't
exactly.
know.
Exactly.
Too much alcohol,
When
too
it's
much
above that,
altitude.
Exactly.
yeah, airspace.
Okay, well, let's talk about a woman who's not as irresponsible as these women anyways, Jennifer Aniston. Now, are you less of a woman because you didn't have kids? Jennifer Aniston certainly does not think so. Speaking with Carson Daly, Aniston says she's constantly bombarded with questions like, when are you getting married? When will you have children? Are you pregnant? She says motherhood and marriage should never be a measure of a value as a woman. Is there too much pressure on women to get married and have kids?
Just before we ask the opinions here, Shenae, you're married now. When are the kids coming?
Oh my gosh, right? You have no
She's
idea
like
how
12 and a
many
half.
times I get asked that question.
Imagine.
Yeah, it is nonstop.
Is it out of order to be asking that question just because you're married now?
I mean, I think it's to each their own, and I think women honestly put the pressure on themselves. I don't know that it's, the external voices or society that's putting that pressure on them. I think, it is a dream for a lot of women, and if it's not for Jennifer Aniston, then, that's
But
her right.
are we judging those who don't want to have kids?
So I think the problem here is, first of all, it sounds like really wicked therapy speech, that what she said, sort of like, why judge the measure? It sounds like she had a really good session with her therapist, which is amazing. But I also agree very highly with what she said. I think that's a really important message. But she's also been talking about wanting to have kids. You don't hear people asking Cameron Diaz when she's having babies. She's married and she talks about wanting to have kids. It's like, when's George Clooney settling down? I mean, you know, when's this and that? So I think that it's a normal question to ask. Everyone's a yenta out there in the world. They want to know this and that. It's what drives the news. And so I really think her message is really important, but, you know, she's put it out there already. So I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
I think Shenae hit the nail on the head here. It's how you react to it. So when those words come out, it's a natural curiosity to ask that question. It's just, you know, you have ovaries and, you know, and all that. Why not? Children must be next.
Knock them out.
Sure. I know.
And it's how you react.
I'm
joking, but also it's how you react. Don't, you know, it's deflect it and take it appropriately. And some people just want to be curious.
It is very true. And I think that how you conduct yourself, and if you fly off the handle, and Shenae, you know this, when you're sitting in the chair and you're about to be interviewed for a show or something, and then it goes off to a personal question, it's how you handle it. And that lets the interviewer know, whoa, okay, that's fine. We got our answer, let's move right on.
Should we mention that
oh gosh,
speaking of Jennifer Aniston.
Speaking of Jennifer Aniston, the Associated Press just released information that Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were married over the weekend.
Arch nemesis. There you go. Angie is trying to steal the show, the headlines this morning, from Jennifer Aniston once more.
It always seems to happen that way, doesn't it?
They tied the knot.
They tied the knot.
In France.
They've got an army of children, and they've
finally
decided to,
no one's asking Angie the question about kids, because we know how many they have.
Six of them.
Yeah, but they still are. Is she pregnant again? When is she?
More twins are pregnant.
Really?
With
She's got ovaries, apparently, that she should pop them out.
Yeah, it's going to come back to haunt me, isn't it? Finally, Justice Minister Peter MacKay drawing fire for a photo wearing a pro-gun T-shirt. Look at this. It bears the logo of Canada's National Firearms Association, which combines a maple leaf with an assault rifle. MacKay says he wore it because it was given to him by a veteran so he could take a picture with him. Any problems with him wearing that shirt? He is our defense minister.
No, he was. He was our defense minister.
Right. What do you think?
Now,
I mean, he's a billboard, right? You got to be careful with what you're going to put on you. So you know it's going to attract attention. You know it's going to create controversy. So it has done that. Whatever wherever you stand on the issue.
Yeah, I don't think it's, my only issue with it is that he's playing the oblivious card. You know what I mean? And saying, oh, it was just in whatever. It's like, come on, man. You know where you stand in the public eye. And it's a very bold statement. The fact that it's literally a maple leaf split with it, I mean, you're saying something, you know, whether you meant to or not.
Yeah, and I think you certainly have to think about that, especially in light of yesterday what happened. A 9-year-old girl was at a shooting range and was being instructed how to use a gun, and the AK-47 went off and killed the instructor.
Insane.
So I mean,
America, though,
yeah,
right?
that is the U.S., but you do have to think about that.
I
I think that you have to make that decision.
That being said, I know.
Okay.
That being said, though, we got to make the distinction too, because people who are going to say this is very different stories.
Sure.
That being said, I'd much rather know where our politicians stand than not. Right? So at the end of the day, we know that this is playing to his base, don't get me wrong, but I also would rather know the truth about where someone stands than try and hide it.
Fair point.
At the end of the day, he could always say, you know what, I was drunk and I didn't know what I was doing. It's worked for everybody else.
Two girls.
We were on our way to Cuba. It was a gift from Castro. When the morning show comes back, we're going to talk about turning a great Canadian novel into a TV miniseries. Actor Lyric Bent is in the house. He tells us the secrets to bringing the Book of Negroes to life.
And later, emergency house call. Big Brother All-Star Dan Giesling weighs in on the drama and shares some insider info on the house guest rule book.
Lawrence Hill's award-winning novel, The Book of Negroes, will soon be coming to television. It tells the harrowing story of Aminata Diallo, forced into slavery as a child, and her incredible journey home. Take a look.
And I'll pronounce you man and wife.
Not in the promised land. Not yet.
Movie stars Anjanou Ellis, Cuba Gooding Jr., as well as our next guest, one of our favorites, Mr. Lyric Bent, joins us. Good to see you, Lyric.
Thank you. Good to
Welcome,
see you guys.
welcome. Lyric, I mean, so many people around the world have read The Book of Negroes.
Yeah.
It's a book written by Lawrence Hill, Canadian author. I think over 1 million copies sold.
Yeah.
And now it's being turned into a mini-series. I want to ask you, 6-part mini-series. What did you think when you got offered the part to play in this sweeping novel?
It was a year process.
Really?
To get that part. I heard about it and I immediately called my manager and said, listen, I need to get in on this. And we just started fielding phone calls. And
campaigning and pushing.
Yeah, because I mean, it's big, you know. Long story short, I got on their radar and it was a year whirlwind, just back and forth. And then I heard nothing for 4 months, so I thought, I didn't get it. I was devastated. And then I got a phone call saying, you know, things are back in order. You know, they were just trying to take care of house, and then it just all came together. And I was just like, wow,
what a gift, huh?
Yeah.
To be a part of this history.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
It's an incredible story, of course, a love story first and foremost, but it's also reflective of true history. Well, and you get to play the lead male, who's the thread through the entire story.
I don't know how they thought that he could be a lead male. I'm looking at him and I'm like,
it's a stretch,
are
right?
you
It's
doing a
stretch.
character part, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
But what the gift also gives of this book is history, and there's a Canadian history that we forget about in this country when it comes to slavery, the Underground Railroad.
Yes.
And people watching in Halifax know all about it.
Yeah,
even
shout
in
out
Niagara.
to Halifax.
Yeah, Halifax.
They were great.
You filmed down there.
We
filmed
shot
down there as well.
for about 2 months.
And I think it's important for every Canadian to read this book. If you don't know the history of the Underground Railroad, if nothing else, this miniseries will help.
Oh, it will definitely shed light on the situation out there and how Canada played a part in all of this. And it's not only entertaining, but it's educational. And I hope this miniseries makes its way into the education system.
Well, what it taught me was the book that once they were free, they still weren't free.
No.
When they got to Halifax,
Yeah.
and we need to make that point as well.
Yeah.
The struggles continued in a different way.
Oh gosh, it was just tough, and we all know how cold it is out there when winter comes around, and it was just a really hard way of living. And what I enjoyed when we were shooting there is it was winter when we were there, so it was hard to complain that we were cold. You know, knowing that, you know, what we're imitating right now was real for the people there.
What's it like when you're an actor? Obviously, you're used to playing roles and playing parts, but when you're actually acting in a historical piece, where like it potentially could have been one of your relatives, one of your ancestors, what's that like? Does it give it some gravitas for you, or how does it affect you as an actor?
Well, it just the content in itself affects you because you're really soaking it in and you're making it affect you. That's what we do, and we put ourselves in harm's way to give you guys an idea of what's happening, how people are feeling, and relatives or not, you're affected, and it really weighs you down emotionally. And thankfully, we had a great cast who supported each other, and after a scene, we would kind of huddle together and just talk each other out of the scene, and
There's a real, at the helm of this movie, the director is Clement Virgo, who's a Canadian.
Yes.
What was his approach? What was it like working with him?
Clement's he's a very visual guy, and his cinematography skills are just on point. And his storytelling, because he was also, one of the writers, is great. And he allowed us to bring it to life, which is tough when you're dealing with a writer-director, because sometimes they're so rigid and they don't want to step outside of what's in their head. And he trusted us to bring life to this, and I was thankful for that. I kind of leaned on him, and I told him, I'm leaning on you to let me know what story you're telling. And then, once I got comfortable, and he basically made it comfortable for me to, give it life, he just stepped back and allowed us to play. And I think that's what really makes you connected to the characters, because it's really genuine. And Ingenue Ellis was amazing. She was amazing.
You shot to fame here in this country, in the United States, on daily television or weekly television, of course, on Rookie Blue, which was a great role, and a lot of people, in this country especially, were very proud of the fact that you helped put Toronto on the map in terms of that. But I also love your story, because you came to Canada from Jamaica as you were 6.
Yeah, about that. Yes,
6
yes,
or
yes.
7 or whatever, and you grew up in a rough neighborhood. You go on to graduate with honors at university, and you are destined to be a computer graphic designer. And then someone says, "I dare you to be an actor, Lyric."
And you do that.
And look what happened.
Yeah, I know.
Is it true you were dared to?
Yeah, it was a serious challenge. It was a, you know, I was going door to door selling long distance, and I used to get a lot of people giving me, you know, really interesting compliments and asking me if I was an, you know, an actor or a model or I looked familiar. And the coworker said, I bet you, you know, you need to go see this guy, and if I make more money than you got to go see it, because I mean, he wanted to be an actor, and he was like, I wish I had that. You know, you got something.
Yeah.
So I, of course, lost the bet, and he brought the business card the next day, and EVN Studios, still my coach today, Earl. Is still my coach to this day.
Actor.
And, yeah.
Lyric Bent. You never know, right? When you take a dare, what happens?
Yeah,
Where
well,
it will lead you.
You gotta be open. You gotta be open to take on anything that comes, you know, and not be afraid of what you don't really know. You just gotta embrace it and learn from it. You know?
We're glad you
work out
did.
well.
We're so
Yeah.
glad you did. Lyric Bent, thank you so much for stopping by, and all the best.
Thank you for
I
having
was
me.
joking earlier. I knew him when. Don't forget that, Lyric. when you're up there on the big screen, I'm going to be calling you. Say, I want. What do you mean, Leslie? Who? Don't forget that.
I'm a holler.
Coming up on the morning show, Miley Cyrus helped put the homeless in the spotlight, of course, and our co-host Shenae Grimes shares the lessons she learned working with kids on the street. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Earlier this week, Miley Cyrus made waves when she had a young homeless man accept an award for her at the MTV Music Awards. Take a look.
And I am accepting this award on behalf of the 1.6 million runaways and homeless youth in the United States who are starving, lost, and scared for their lives right now. I know this because I'm one of these people.
Now, Miley met Jesse at a place called My Friend's Place in Los Angeles. And Shenae, you actually did some volunteering work there and actually filmed a movie with some other kids who were homeless in LA.
Yeah. A couple years back, I filmed a movie called Sugar, and My Friend's Place was actually one of the locations that we shot. My paycheck from the movie went there as well. What they do is amazing. The facility that they have, they, you know, feed the kids and provide showers. Oh, there I am.
Yeah.
And they provide counseling, which I think is the most important part. They make these kids accountable. They have to show up, they have to abide by the rules, and they provide counseling, you know, whether it be therapy sessions or, you know, helping them kind of build resumes for, you know, interviews in the future and all the rest of it. So what they do is incredible, but it's a growing social issue. Like he said, 1.6 million, you know, that's a big number in America. And I think it's an issue that is constantly growing, but no one really knows how to address. Right. You know, and I've gone back and forth so many times in my mind from my experience and what I learned from the kids personally. And it is tricky, you know. There's so many food handouts, and you do, you know, the Meals on Wheels and the Thanksgiving, and I've done all of that stuff, but it's like, is that really fixing the problem? How much deeper do we need to dive, you know? And the #1 priority from studies is reuniting these kids with their families, because a lot of the times their family situation, you know, was or wasn't as negative as you may think, you know, and so that's a big priority. And where do we go from there, or if that's not possible? And so I wanted to ask you guys your opinions, because it fascinates me, and I think we do need to do something that isn't just, you know, giving out hot meals.
Putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess my biggest concern is that you know, can you trust these kids? You know, are they telling you the truth? I mean, living on the street, there's a lot of cons, right? And I'm saying, I'm not accusing them, but it's about survival of the fittest, right? So that's my concern about empowering with money and.
And you need a good story to survive.
Right.
From my experience, I spent a lot of time out on Venice Beach by myself at night, alone, unarmed. You know, I don't carry knives or anything crazy like that. And I was completely safe. At no time did I feel like I was in harm's way or I needed to be concerned. With that said, as far as money and all the rest of it, I did need to draw a line because I was forming personal relationships. So I knew that as hard as it was, I couldn't take them home with me. I couldn't buy them dinner every night. And, you know, it was more about being a shoulder to lean on and being an ear, you know, and they became good friends of mine. They were an ear for me as well.
Some first-hand experience. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking Big Brother. Did you know there's a house guest rule book? Yeah. Dan Giesling is standing by next. Another big night last night on Big Brother. Let's bring in the all-star, the man who's been there, the guy who's won it. Dan Giesling's joining us now. Good to see you, Dan, as always. Need a little insight. Victoria, the house guest that everyone loves to hate, yet she's still surviving. Little drama for her last night. It was all about the wisdom teeth. Paramedics come in. Is that the first time they actually had to bring in emergency responders?
Well, that's kind of the interesting part of the show is when the EMS comes in, the producer's #1 priority is the house guest safety. So anytime there's any type of a scare, you know, in her case, I think she fainted, the EMS comes in to make sure everything's okay. But the interesting part, as long as you're not the house guest getting injured, it can be kind of exciting because you got to remember, this is the first time those house guests are seeing another face for the first time all summer. And so it's kind of exciting, and once you know the person's healthy, then it's fine. But it's such a unique thing because it stirs up a lot of emotions by just seeing someone new and being scared. It brings the players outside of the game just for a small moment.
If you want to give her kudos, I guess it's the fact that she's been able to last so long despite being such a bad player. Or maybe she's a great player. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, the thing with Victoria is she's just been kind of hanging on to whatever Derek wants her to do. And there's been a big joke online that she doesn't get a lot of FaceTime. Well, she got a lot of FaceTime last night. Unfortunately for her, it was just for, you know, a medical issue and not the fact she's actually playing the game hard at all.
Big Brother rule book? News to me. Obviously, you've been there. Did you know it existed, and how extensive is it?
Yes, so there's a big laminated book, and really the way to break it down is there's rules and then there's guidelines. There's very strict rules in there about what happens if you quit in terms of your stipend money and the fact there's a lot of people depending on you. So there's a rules and safety aspect of it, but the more interesting part is the guidelines. There's guidelines within the book that I believe make the show easier to produce for the producers. So one of the rules is, hey, if you're going to nominate someone, don't tell them. And the reason why that's in there is so that you can catch a moment of shock on camera. And so some people got a little upset about the fact that a couple weeks ago someone had mentioned who they're nominating in Zach, but they're more guidelines. They're not, you know, black and white rules that you have to do this every time, because they're really in there to help the producers make the best show they possibly can. And it's your job as a house guest to follow those guidelines.
Are you disappointed that Cody didn't put Frankie on the block to backdoor him in the end?
Cody was talking a big game at the end, and that's the right move for him, you know, because Derek's going to always outlast Cody. And I think in the end, the move that Cody isn't making right now, and he's playing the safe route, it's going to cost him the game in the end.
Big Brothers, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays right here on Global. Dan, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for the insight. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Love all those intricate stories.
Yeah,
in and out and all
insight
around.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Love it. So we're going to end off.
Yeah.
We're going to end off the week with you guys, Jill Pollack and Shenae Grimes-Beech, back for our Friday show.
One more sleep.
I do love it. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.